Today's episode is a little bit different than normal. We're taking a field trip up to 21 Brix Winery in Portland, New York, where we're going to talk to winemaker Kris Kane. In this episode, we're going to cover topics like grape growing in cold climates, winemaking tips, oak versus oak alternatives, and just general winemaking talk between me and the winemaker. And this is going to be more of a long format video where it's relatively uncut and unedited. And I'm curious to hear your feedback about it, if this is more of the kind of stuff you guys want to see, because I'd like to do some more similar talks like this with other winemakers in the area. So if you guys have any questions that you'd like me to cover with these winemakers, make sure you post it in the comments, and I'll be sure to try to capture those in any next conversations I have. So here we go with Kris Kane. So I'm up here in Portland, New York at 21 Brix Winery with Kris Kane, a winemaker. And we're just going to talk about some challenges that he goes through as a winemaker at a professional winery and just what got him into it, and try to help the home winemaking scene by talking to some actual professionals. So Kris, what got you into winemaking?
Family heritage really started my trek down the winemaking scene. I grew up on a 300-acre grape farm. Being part of it all growing up through my childhood, it really actually pushed me away from wanting to be on the farm. So I went off to college to go into medicine, and midway through that trek and being at college, I brought one of my roommates from college who was from the city out here, and he worked with us during a winter break, and we were tearing out a vineyard. And I'm sitting on the tractor, and he's on the ground, and we're in a snowstorm. And it's 20 degrees out, freezing.
Typical Erie weather.
Yeah, typical Erie weather. And here we are, and he literally pinches his finger in the chain as we're trying to pull the post out in the vineyard. And he looks up at me, he's like, ow, and he goes, you know, you're the luckiest person in the world. I'm thinking because I'm sitting on the forklift and I'm not down there doing the legwork. And he's like, you get to work in this, and you live in this. Which it was just kind of in the midst of all the vineyards. And what I see it as the worst in the wintertime with all of our snow, he's seen it as something beautiful. And it kind of clicked, and realized how lucky I am to be part of something in this region with the history, the size of the vineyards, the experience, the know-how, and the opportunity that we had in this Lake Erie region.
And what took you from the growing side of things to the actual winemaking? Did you do like some home winemaking? Or?
Yeah, I went from 15 gallons to 50,000 gallons. Yeah. So I literally made one batch and didn't even finish it. And the next year was making 50,000 gallons. In 2005, after a year working on the farm, I knew that it wasn't the right fit for me. I really put everything I had into working on the farm, but it wasn't me. It wasn't my calling. And there was a local winery that had just lost their winemaker. And I decided that it would be good to try out the winemaking. See, my dad said, go on up there, put your application in. And it was Presque Isle Wine Cellars in Northeast Pennsylvania. Little did I know that it was probably the best thing that could have happened to me. The Presque Isle has a lot of history in the region, with Doug Moorhead being a pioneer in both the home winemaking and the commercial winemaking scene. And the network of connections of all that history has, it kind of took me down that path. So I went from not wanting the grape growing and saying, okay, maybe I can add value to the farm by getting into the winemaking, and falling into one of the best opportunities I could locally. So I went from, I didn't know how to make wine. I had a biology degree. I'm reading the books the night before I'm coming back. I'm asking tons of questions to Doug, the Presque Isle team, as well as winemakers from both near and far that Doug had known or had passings with, and sometimes I was just shooting emails off to random people in California or Oregon or the Finger Lakes asking questions.
So what were some of the biggest kind of unexpected hurdles and challenges when you went from like the small 15-gallon batch to the commercial size, high-risk stuff?
I would say that surprisingly it actually gets easier as you get bigger.
Yeah.
Because you have more equipment doing the job. If you can make good quality wine in the 5, 10, 15, up to 200-gallon range, it only gets easier from there because of the use of equipment and the sizing and the scaling. It doesn't matter if you're making 20 gallons or you're making 20 million gallons.
Yep.
It's all the same processes, all the same techniques can be applied, but just scale. And then also with that becomes dollar bills.
Right.
So of all that, the biggest thing is really how expensive then the equipment gets. It seems that if you attach the name wine to the back end of anything, it just doubles
Times
the price.
two, yeah. Yep. Have you ever had anything go unexpected to plan, and you've either been able to kind of bring it back around, or you just ruined a whole?
Well, I mean, we have bigger boo-boos when it comes to here. I mean, my first one that comes to mind that was a big mistake is I was transferring juice, and it was our free-run Riesling, which was our creme de la creme of a fantastic year in 2006 for aromatic whites, and I'm transferring 275 gallons from the press pad up to the winemaking facility with a forklift, and I hit a bump and the tote falls off and it shatters, and I just watch all the juice go down the drain. Yeah. And it just that was difficult, so there's no calling back, but that was more of a facility technical issue.
Yeah, it's like dropping a carboy, but 1,000 times worse.
Yes, absolutely. And I would say though, if you talk to any winemaker and home winemaker, and they tell you that they don't have any issues with wine, or they've never made a trouble wine, well, don't drink any of their wine, because they're blatantly lying to you.
Yeah, something's wrong with their taste buds.
Yes, exactly. and or they just hide it, and they're a little too arrogant for me and my type that, you know, we all make mistakes. And sometimes they just happen. And it takes, on a home winemaking level, you can maybe pass it off to your friends, and you don't know how long they're going to be your friends. Yeah. On a business side of it with a winery, I can keep trying to sell it, and I won't be in business, and I'll be drinking with my friends or by myself, and not so much anymore. So I have had several batches that have had volatile acidity due to a funky barrel that we acquired secondhand that had some issues coming in. Using fruit that was subpar, and I would say a lot of it comes from the starts and stems. The problems you can have stem from the quality of the fruit that you get from the vineyard. And then, as a home winemaker, you do have some, and on commercial, you have some ability to be selective, but it only goes so far. Right? Mother Nature is number one, and some years it just, you've done all practices and all the techniques you can, and you just have to work with the fruit that you have. Yeah. And those are the years that we use our toolbox with all the techniques that we have to try to fix that. But yeah, go back to your question. I have made mistakes, and things happen, and I would say it happens more with oak barrels than it does with stainless steel tanks. Okay. And it all stems from the ability to clean and what harbors bacteria and can give us problems down the road.
So that brings me to another question. So I know with oak you have options. You can use, you know, American oak, French oak. You can use oak staves, oak chips, oak spirals. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about the differences between some of the oak alternatives versus actually committing to a oak barrel?
Yeah. Oak alternatives are fantastic for imparting the oak flavor, but you have. And you have Hungarian oak as well, which, but I don't think you can mimic an oak barrel flavor and taste, and it's not the actual oak integration. We can eat, in fact, they have liquid oak now, where you can actually impart the oak characteristic. It's the oxygenation or the micro-oxygenation that happens that you get with a barrel. Being that wood is porous, and you have the wine in the barrel, and it breathes, and you have chemical transformations happening within that barrel with that oxygen ingression that you can't mimic when you put oak in a stainless steel tank, or a stave or a spiral in a carboy. So I mean, and they've now come up with micro-oxygenation where we actually are pumping oxygen into our big tanks now, and they're really for cost alternatives. But I would say value wines, we've absolutely, oak staves and oak, you can't beat it. Yep. You absolutely can't. And it's all surface area to volume ratio.
I know a barrel is kind of a challenging thing for a homemaker to commit to 30 or 60 gallons of wines at once. Of the oak alternatives, what do you think is the best bet for those?
In my past, I used spirals. I used oak spirals. I really liked the way that integrated, gave me the right ratio of wine exposure to the oak, and the ability to pull a spiral out without having remnants or having to have a sheet or a bag to hang in the carboy. Yeah. Sometimes you can't fit through the neck of the carboy. Sure. So I really like the oak spirals. Those are my first choice when it comes to oak alternatives. I've also used the oak chips, and I would say oak is important as well early on in the winemaking process, if I can step back. More so in red winemaking than in white winemaking. And what we like to use is untoasted oak chips. So they're not toasted, they're just raw oak. Okay. And we'll use those during the fermentation process of red wines, especially in the Lake Erie region or in cool climates where we have methoxypyrazines and green character to deal with. Studies show that by putting in the oak chips, they actually will absorb up a little bit of the methoxypyrazine or the green bell pepper character. Oh, interesting. But they also help to stabilize the color long term. So I'm not looking for the oak influence where I get the toasted character that I'm going to get later on. Yeah. And I would suggest don't waste your money on toasted oak chips or anything during the fermentation process. Yeah. Go for untoasted oak chips. That's interesting. Yeah. And then you just throw them away during your pressing as they come out. And then you can influence with the oak, salt and pepper, and seasoning with oak. Yeah. When you're doing it with staves, where I would say my analogy is kind of like how you can have a steak that's aged at temp and it kind of gets softer and gets nicer. It's kind of like that's the aging, just like in a barrel where it's the air coming in. But you can just take a steak fresh and put salt and pepper on it and grill it, and it's going to be good, but it's not going to be as tender or as fulfilling as an aged steak would be, just like having a wine in an aged barrel, where you get everything with a barrel. Even on the home winemaking side, where you were saying that the small barrels can be a little bit difficult. Yeah. On the commercial side, it's the same. It doesn't. Even though I have wine to fill it back in, the hardest and most laborious thing that we do is work with oak barrels. Yeah. Topping up, cleaning, just the physical handling of them, moving. The requirement of forklifts, they're heavy, and then even sometimes they leak, and you have a $1,500 French oak barrel that leaks. Or it comes in and it's got cork taint or something. And we've since they've had some issues with barrels, and so we went to using certified wood, working with coopers that have the whole process test to eliminate some of those variables. So who are some coopers that you could recommend as a good, reliable source for barrels? Yeah, I mean coopers are like car brands. I mean, you have Ford, Mercury, GMC, and you have all the different barrel companies. Tenalier, you have Radu and Mercier. There's so many to work with. Most have implemented the strategies. Personally, I like to use Mercier oak. I work with World Cooperage for our Noire wine, our red program on Noire. Budapesti Kadar, we use a lot of Canton oak, which is Missouri oak, American oak. We're probably 65% American oak here. Okay. 35% French oak, and then the rest is Hungarian oak. So we have a good mix. But I use probably 8 different coopers. Because each one, they have their different technique in the way that they season the wood or the way that they toast it, their toasting process, where they might mist it before they burn it, and they get the different temperatures, the different profiles, and even the different shapes of the barrels. They have, it might not be noticeable to the eye. There's thickness of the staves. There's so many different variables with oak. But to just give you a couple key brands, I mean, Canton's a go-to, and World Cooperage are definitely go-tos for for oak barrels that are accessible. That actually, and if you're looking at the home winemaking scene, you need to work with a company that makes small barrels.
Yeah.
So we've worked with World Cooperage to do that.
Okay, that's good to know. Okay, and so I heard you say Noir. I know that's a hybrid.
Yeah.
Right? So could you talk about the difference between the French-American hybrids versus a native grape versus maybe a Vinifera grape?
Yeah. So that's. I mean, do we have enough time during this interview?
Yeah. It's YouTube. You have as much time as you want.
So yeah, you have in this region native grapes are big, which we had Concord, Niagara, and we call native hybrids, which are Catawba, Delaware. Some of these old historical American heirloom varieties, we call them, that grow well in this region. They were kind of native. But there's no true native here. They're natural hybrids, I would call them. That just really exploded.
They got popular.
Yeah,
like
and this
Concord with Welch's.
And that's what helped really explode this region.
Sure.
And then you have hybrids where they've taken known varieties, whether it be of European descent or American descent, and they crossbreed them. Whether that's happened naturally in the vineyard and they've isolated the vine and said, ooh, this is now diamond, or they actually pollinate from one to the other and make a hybrid. And then you have your Vinifera, which is of your European varieties, Vitis vinifera, that are your more traditional, your more traditional wine varieties. Your historical sense, Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, Chardonnay, Riesling, Merlot. So those are kind of that's Vinifera and the European varieties in your traditional wine. But with the ability to grow grapes in multiple regions, not every region is suitable for growing Vinifera varieties. So they started making these hybrids where you crossbreed Vinifera with natives and you start getting different characteristics, both as a grower, so you can actually grow them in the region with the climate, but also for flavor. Maybe sometimes you don't want it as if you're looking for a lighter red, or you wanted the characteristics of Riesling, but you needed the growing capabilities of, I don't know, I'm trying to think of
Niagara.
Niagara. And it's where Vidal comes on, and Vidal makes a very nice Germanic style white wine, can grow in a multitude of regions, and has good taste. So you have your native varieties they're usually own rooted. They can grow in the soils here in America. And you don't have to worry about phylloxera, which almost decimated the whole wine industry as we know it in the 1800s. And then you have hybrids, which are grafted on to certain rootstock that can grow in the soils here, and they also can limit the vine size, which girdles them so they're not overly fruit bearing, and that way you have a chance of ripening the fruit. And then also with Vinifera, you have to graft them because of phylloxera, the root louse that would kill them. So that brings its own challenges. And with Constantine Frank in I want to say the 60s, brought over from the Finger Lakes, brought over some of the Ukrainian techniques to grow these, I would say, sensitive European varieties in a cool climate. And he brought over growing techniques of being able to hill up the dirt around the graft union to bear the cold winters, and then they're able to grow throughout the growing season and maintain.
Yeah, I know. So you guys are what climate zone? 5?
Well, 5, I would say 5B.
Yeah, so to grow Vinifera in zone 5B is like a phenomenal challenge. I know the Finger Lakes pull it off. Some of you guys up in the Lake Erie region can pull it off, but you said hilling up over the graft union is big. So let's say you have some of our home winemakers, you want to start a little vineyard in your backyard, but you're not in Southern California. Maybe you're zone 5 or zone 6. If you had 5 grapes you could pick for, relatively high quality wine, but also relatively growable in the region. What do you think your top 5 would be for those climate zones?
Yeah, I would look at some of the new Minnesota hybrids that are coming out. I've had a few with like Marquette. The Minnesota breeding program has some nifty varieties that are both cold tolerant, have quality wines, and can withstand spring frosts and have a short enough growing season to ripen all the way. There was Marquette and Frontenac. I would also look at, say, Foch or some of the traditional, original hybrids with Foch. You got to balance it. You're going to have some give. There's been no perfect variety. And even on that, who says what's a perfect variety? The taste is all in the consumer's eyes.
Right. What do you want to drink in the first place?
I might like Capsav, but you might like Foch. And that's the beauty of winemaking. So it's kind of. But some tips: I'd look at the Cornell varieties that were just produced with Treminette, Cayuga, Noire is another good one. They're grower friendly. It's all the spring frost that you need to worry about. But as far as Vinifera is concerned, you can try it. And even in your zones or in less risky zones, on a small scale it can be done. You just need to be a little more conscientious about maybe you're doing a little bit more work with greenhousing or shielding over those. I don't know how much wine you're looking to make, but
as much as I can fit in my yard. So.
And each plant's going to give you 13 to. Each vine gives you 13 to 20 pounds of grapes.
Okay.
It takes 13 pounds to make a gallon. So if you're looking at 10 gallons, you need about 10 plants.
Okay. And is there something you could do with the type of trellis? I see that just even around here, there's a lot of different single wires versus the vertical shoot positioning stuff.
With natives, we've used where we need to be cost effective because it's more of a value commodity. So we're growing for scale. And the vines, the way that they hang, don't need extra wires. So we have a high wire cordon where it's just 2 wires. You have a mid zone where and that's really to grow and to train the vine to a mid level. And it's kind of like an intermediary zone, and then it reaches up to the top wire, and you develop canes on the top wire. That's high wire cordon. Very good for natives and bushier varieties that aren't challenged. They ripen. They're disease resistant because with a high wire cordon, everything drapes. You don't have good airflow. So you want to find varieties that are disease resistant.
So that would be your Concords,
your natives, to an extent. I mean, all varieties are. There's no bulletproof variety yet, but certainly natives. And then you can get into some. There's many different styles of VSP, vertical shoot positioning, where you have up to 9 wires. And you train the canopy to go upright. You have a fruiting zone that's very specific in the center. And on commercial sides, it makes a lot of sense because you can target spray. And where sprays can be expensive, fungicides, insecticides, everyone does it differently. We practice sustainability here at 21 Brix, so we use what we need and we gauge it off of what the climate is presenting for that year. Some years we don't have to use hardly any vineyard alternatives to manage the vineyard, to keep them alive and disease and clean fruit. But other years we've got to use the kitchen sink just to get the fruit to the winery. So with that's where VSP comes into play, where you have this nice zone where you can focus on the fruit, but you also have the leaves where you can keep those right. You also have a Scott Henry system where you have, it's similar to a VSP, but you have two leaf zones that go both up and down, and you still have the fruit in the center. Quite a little bit more labor involved, and then after that you can get into there's also a VSP a double curtain, Geneva double curtain, which my grandfather was on the team with Nelson Shawless early on, brought it back here into the Lake Erie region, where you have a high wire cordon, but you have 2 arms that spread out, and it makes a wider zone to get more sunlight penetration into the leaves, and you have more leaf exposure, with more leaf exposure, you have more photosynthesis, and you can ripen things up faster and get more of that energy into the fruit to ripen fruit quicker, or get it sweeter or carry a heavier crop load. It has its risks, and it's a unique style, but they modified it down in the likes of Virginia and some other regions to make the Lyre system, which is a modified double curtain where it's an even bigger arm up in the air. And it's pretty cool and unique, but it's all about getting sun exposure to the leaves to maximize ripeness of the fruit.
Yep.
And drying the canopies out, where you have morning dews or late night fog, and that moisture becomes a hotbed for funguses to grow. So you want that early sun that can dry that, or the prevailing winds coming up. The great thing, another thing about growing in this particular region, Lake Erie, the moderating effect of the lake, we got good breezes, and the breezes come through and they help to dry the canopies out.
Oh, okay.
It's still an overall humid climate, but we do have some advantages.
All right, Kris, so you've told us a lot of really cool stuff. What are the biggest top-selling wines that you sell here at 21 Brix?
Our biggest sellers are our Cellar Native series. Niagara, Concord, Fredonia, our Thirsty Elephant, which is a blend of Concord, Niagara, and Fredonia.
Okay.
A little bit sweeter, fruitier, very aromatic, reminiscent of if you're in the vineyard eating the grape and you come and you smell it in the bottle, they're exactly the same. You don't need any imagination. You know what it is. They just scream of aroma and intensity. So the sweet house wines here at 21 Brix, so Ella's Red, Ella's White, named after our big pink elephant in front of the building, which I'm sure you saw when you pulled in here. Those are our most popular. Riesling is what we pride ourselves on. It's of the Vinifera, on our 300-acre farm on the Vinifera, it's our largest planting, with just, I think, shy of 20 acres of Riesling. Multiple clones, and we do 3 different styles of Riesling here at 21 Brix. They've gotten national accolades, many awards, both national and international.
Cool. What about dry reds?
Dry reds, Noir is a staple on our menu. It's a Cornell variety that I talk about with just intense black pepper spice, great tannin structure, and we oak age it, and it's been a staple since the day we opened. We also have a very nice Blaufränkisch or Lemberger, an Austrian variety that grows very well in this Lake Erie climate. And we try our hand at Cab Sauv, which we'll put out it's not every year. We save it for the years that we have plenty of sunshine. We have a ripe grape that was brought in that has the right flavor profile to customer.
Yeah, I was talking earlier, I was wondering how you guys can make Cabernet Sauvignon, because I've had it and it tastes right. It tastes as good as any Finger Lakes cab I've had, and even a lot of California cabs. And like you told me, it's maybe 3 out of 10 years you'll get a harvest with a grape like that.
Every year we have a harvest. It's just we have to earn our stripes on those 7 years as winemakers. We have to use every tool in the toolbox to make a decent wine. But on the nice warm years, those 3 years, the wine makes itself, and you don't really have to do too much, and you have just intensity. I hear comparisons and analogies to other regions. I mean, I think that's the beauty of the winemaking world. That if we were all the same and it was all cookie cutter, what fun is that? And I have people ask me, well, why don't you make a California cab? Well, because I live in Lake Erie. And if I wanted to make a California cab, I'd move out west and make a California cab, and I would put my feet up and make easy wine, because the climate allows it.
This really works the winemaker hard out.
No 2 years are alike. When I was in Australia working, the winemaker, he could predict what was going to happen, and he could tell me the style that he was going to do. Although I thought it was fun that I was in Australia making wine, I found it quite boring. It was not interesting. It was just almost like recipes. Where here, every year is a challenge. Every year is different. You never get bored with the job. Maybe frustrated because you have to change something up, or you can't rest on something. So it's just pulling in experience and knowledge. And between Lake Erie, New York in general, Pennsylvania, the Lake Erie region, Finger Lakes, we're all facing and have almost exactly the same growing conditions. So they'll stand up. Lake Erie wines stand up to just about anyone. I like that, and we're the largest region, both in New York State, east of the Rockies, right here, New York, Pennsylvania. This stretch along the Lake Erie shoreline is gigantic. But here at 21 Brix, with our third generation of grape growing, the 17 different varieties of grapes that we grow, the experiments we've done with many different varieties, we run the gamut from dry to sweet, from native to vinifera, and we like to have an offering for everybody. And if it's available at my tasting bar, that means that it's in our eyes it's clean. It has the gumption to be worthy enough to be on our tasting bar to offer it to customers. If it doesn't make the cut, well, we fertilize our vineyards. We bring it back to the vineyard, and that happens. If it just you did everything you could and the wine just doesn't come out, we're not going to force it into a bottle and try to make it something that's not. It's not a service to ourselves. It's not a service to the customer. So we make sure we make the sound wine every year.
And do you do? So I know as a home winemaker, I do a lot of blending.
Yes.
Is that something you guys end up doing a lot of as a commercial winery?
Yeah.
To dial things just right?
Right. I do far less than people might think.
Yeah.
I'm really this is more my personal style than other winemakers. I've worked with a lot of wineries that do a lot more blending.
Yeah.
And I find that they're blending more to hide something than to accent something. So I really have 100% straight varietals a lot of time.
Oh, really? Okay.
More in my vinifera.
Yeah.
I really just like to showcase what they offer, and there's very little blending that goes into them. That's why I say I'm kind of like we focus on getting it right in the vineyard, dialing it in before it comes in here, and then the wines make themselves.
Well, that's the beauty of having your own vineyard.
Yes.
Because a lot of times we'll get grapes from California in the crates, and you try to
You're at the mercy of what they.
You're at the mercy.
Yep. And that, I would say, is one of your challenges as home winemakers, and I was there. That's a challenge, is the selection of the grapes, and that's where I felt going in to start a winery, I had a leg up or an advantage. One, I had the background in viticulture and growing grapes that I could then have an understanding and able to communicate with the grower. When I was with another company, we worked with about 25 or 30 growers. Prescott, we didn't have our own vineyards. So I was able to go out, and that's, I would say, more challenging than when you have, but the beauty is that you have more selection. Different soil types, different vineyard locations that give different flavor profiles. And I did a lot more blending when I was with Prescott than I do here now, because they're just vineyard specific. And we've honed in on what they are. More blending occurs in my house wines than I do in my vinifera. So Thirsty Elephant, that place, that blend of Niagara, Concord, and Fredonia. That's probably our biggest blend here. Other than that, it's mostly I like to showcase the variety.
Okay. Well, I know
that's stylistic. That's my personal preference.
Sure. And I know we could probably talk for 3 hours about this stuff, but we're gonna wrap up the video here. If you're ever in the Lake Erie wine region, make sure if you're heading out Route 20, look for the Pink Elephant and stop in at 21 Brix. I know this is one of my favorite wineries in the region. They got a wine for everybody here, and just give it a try. If you haven't yet subscribed to the YouTube channel, click the little subscribe button below, and check out my website, smartwinemaking.com. And what's your website, Kris?
So it's 21brix.com, 21BRIX, like the sugar scale that we use for measuring the sweetness in the grapes.
All right, great. Thanks for watching.
Thank you. Appreciate it.